Hi, this is Stefan Albert, and you're on the Capability Challenge. Today, I'm interviewing Yariv Adan, an ex-Google leader and someone who's been working in the field of AI longer than most of us really understood what it's all about. Now, before we do the full intro, I just want to give you a quick background on where we stand. This is the fifth newsletter. The first was an introduction to the theme of what we're going to discuss on the Capability Challenge, where we really said, look, the core problem is not that change is too fast, but that our learning systems are too slow. We then spoke with Pascal Mariani, who works in the area of deep tech and AI enabling learning. And there we talked about how AI can both be a benefit in helping us learn, but also if used in the wrong way as an answer machine, can maybe make us a little bit dumber. We then went on to speak with Jürgen Wien, who's an expert in capacity building and executives, talking about, do we just need people who have the capability to learn new skills, but also we need to think about, do people have the capacity, and what does it take to enable people to have the capacity to actually take on new challenges, to think outside the box, to actually be able to also learn something new. And most recently, we spoke with Noel Braganza. He runs a startup in the space of skills intelligence. And there we're talking many aspects of organizations not even knowing the skills that people have. And they're learning that if you work with the skills that people love, rather than the skills that they were maybe hired for, you can actually not only get the best out of your team, but you can even grow your revenues. And he's actually given some examples of where he's been able to do that in the past. Now that brings us to today, and we would like to make a step change in the way we're thinking about this. Yariv, maybe in a minute you can give a bit of background from yourself, but we hear lots of wonderful things, both from the speeches that I've seen you give, from the interviews you've given, from your colleagues who really see you as basically a visionary and leader in the field. You're very focused on the technical side, the products, but also on the human side, on the artistic side. So really perfectly placed for this Capability Challenge interview. Now, before I go any further, maybe Yariv, could you just give a brief introduction to what excites you about the future we're going into as an optimist?
Yeah. So thank you very much for having me in your series. Sound that you had already an amazing start. So happy to be part of this conversation and journey. Thank you. I've been excited about AI for a long time, and that excitement just keeps growing. It comes from multiple places, right? So originally I studied engineering back in the 90s. And the reason I studied engineering is because my biggest passion is creating. I love creating stuff. I do some art, I do writing, I do a bunch of things. Now I also do gardening. But when computer sciences became more mainstream in the mid-90s, or was the beginning of it, I thought it was magic. That you can actually take an idea and using code, you're basically turning nothing into something. You have an idea and you make it something in the world that then people can use and sometimes touch, and it generates value. And I found that like a magic wand and one that I can use. And then I also, I got very interested in how our brain works. I did my master's in philosophy, on philosophy of language, philosophy of math, and got a little bit into that rattle. And when AI came, and pretty early on in the early 2000s, I was fascinated by these machines that instead of like really, kind of almost in a stupid way, codify exactly what we want, we're kind of giving them agency, back then by giving them data to learn. And somehow, so again, I was fascinated by that. And then in 2014, 15, I was at Google, and speech actually started to work. So the thing that triggered us back then was suddenly speech recognition and speech generation suddenly sounded a bit more human. And I think that, we are, with our optimism and excitement, I think we maybe got, I don't know if confused or like, the ability to transcribe and speak with ability to understand. I think we maybe underestimated how, the kind of when we were there and when the chat GPT moment would come. And then me and a few other friends, we came and said, we worked on search back then. We said, wouldn't be cool if instead of just sending a query, which is kind of a weird language for itself, right? Querish, we could talk to search. That was like the original, and we're trying to think, okay, we could talk to search, and then we extended it, and that was the origins of Google Assistant. Back then after a while, we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we give it eyes, and that was the origin of Google Lens. So I got super excited, and then again, stop me at any moment. But then once we were starting to playing with understanding and vision, I had this another idea that took me on another trajectory, because my first job, I'm originally from Israel, so you go to the army, and then my first job out of the army was in 1996 or 7. I was teaching people that are retired from the government to use Windows and mouse, and how to use Windows computers and that. And I saw people struggling literally to move the mouse and then suddenly when we came with Assistant, I was like, wow, we're moving from this era where we needed to learn how to use computers, where suddenly computers and machines are learning how to communicate like us. And I was trying to think, okay, once computers and machines, everything suddenly has eyes and ears and understanding in the world, what else can we do other than assistance and stuff? And another thing that sparked my imagination back then was Kasparov. He said he played the first time with the real AI computer. He said, wow, playing with the computer suddenly allowed him to see chess in a completely new way that he's never seen before. So this combination of, okay, now actually the thing, I can talk to and it sees, and it has a kind of a visual and language representation. And what other places like chess I would like to have a new, and that's how I got into AI art, because I said, oh, why wouldn't it be great to view art from a new? So that's how I got to the space of AI art, and yeah, so everything happened in 2015. Like I said, we walked the desert for quite a while. But yeah, somebody needed to walk the desert, and luckily Google has the budgets to walk the desert. Yeah.
So. It's amazing because like AI was this incredible thing I think in the 90s and early 2000s, it's going to blow us all away. And then kind of nothing happened, at least not in an accessible manner. I know the Googles of the world, the Microsofts, the Amazons were all using it as part of their tools, but very clunky, hard to access AI for the most part. And it only was obviously, it was sort of all BC, so before ChatGPT came out. And then once ChatGPT came out, it was sort of like the explosion that had been brewing for, 20 years, essentially. Now, you've seen all of that. Do you think that the AI that we have now is truly exploding at that same speed, or have we now hit a bit of a slowdown again where AI has become incremental rather than as transformative as it has been in, let's say, the past 5 or 6 years?
No, I think we are at the beginning, right? And when I look at AI, I'm thinking about capabilities, like, how intelligent it is, kind of this almost artificial test, ARC, NGI, this kind of test, like, how intelligent it is, and it's becoming very hard to measure. Then there is usefulness, right? Like what kind of tasks that are real world tasks can it actually solve? And then there is like kind of call it enterprise readiness, right? And it's it's a combination of price, availability, speed, security, all of this. And I think we are, I think we're like that.
Just about to hit.
All the thing is little bumps and and the reason, I think the key thing that changed and how it is compared, like, I can definitely, we did a lot of funny stuff. And by the way, in terms of ideas and atoms on intelligence, stuff that we made up 10 years ago still hasn't happened. Proactive and automation, there's still a ton of stuff that we started building and still there is a headroom. But the key thing to understand is, at the end, everything is money. And money, there is two functions to it. How much are you spending and how concentrated that spend is. And the thing that ChatGPT did, it took the marginal cost of content creation to zero. So that's what it did compared to what humans do. That's the thing in the economy that changed. Suddenly content generating high quality professional content that used to be sparse and expensive and slow and limited in scale, and you needed experts, suddenly you can actually generate it at scale, at speed, at zero cost and zero time. And that thing applies to everything. It applies to legal, to medical, to SaaS, to knowledge work, and of course to code and through code to APIs and other systems in the world and to defend. So the opportunity is huge. So, okay, appetite to invest, but also it touches everyone, right? So it touches, startups has this huge opportunity. So all of the VC money goes. And then hyperscalers and frontier models want to own, okay, all the money goes. Governments understand the geopolitical, meaning of that, all the money goes. So if you look, right, there is literally trillions of dollars spent every year on it, completely dwarfing any previous infrastructure investments in the past. So that's one. So if you compare how much money was invested and when we did assistant or the early days of AI, when transformers came out, or even when ChatGPT before, and how much is invested now, it's order of magnitude more. But more so when at the beginning, when to your point, Google has been using AI, everywhere, but it was kind of machine learning models. It was spread all over. There was literally hundreds of projects, so right, even the investment that was much smaller was super spread. Now, these trillions of dollars are pretty much centralized, I don't know, by 10 spenders, and each one of these spenders is spending it on a single model or a single family of models, and that drives progress, right? So when you have a ton of money and it's spent all over, right? It's like on data, on compute, on energy, on models, and super concentrated with enough talent and a domain that has hill climbing. So you can ask whether there are things that there are certain places where we need an elbow to break, but there are still things that are very clearly scaling with the investment. So I think these ones are still will continue to go that. And again, the more you invest, the more your opportunity. And we're seeing that actually every time says, we cannot break, and Claude Code comes and show that suddenly compute is the bottleneck as opposed to inference. Yeah. So I'm super optimistic. Yeah.
I don't often have a question that a person I can ask this question who, I think has the depth of knowledge to answer it. And it's super complex. I think if you look at all the different types of AI that's out there, we're using language models, which has become the model or the family of models that almost everyone is investing all of their dollars in, which is quite different, if I understand right, than the more symbolic, work that had been done before in machine learning. Do you believe that this single-minded focus on sort of language models, vision models, whatever, these transformer type models is well spent, or are we missing other forms of artificial intelligence that could either replace or support it because we're so locked down on this one technology?
Yeah. So I think it's clear to everyone at the moment that the original transformer architecture, has some super cool attributes, but it's not the end of all answers, right? It's super parallelizable, super scalable. Memory was a problem. There is a lot of work. And the second thing is, it's very clear to everyone that there is a ton of value, and surprisingly more than we expected, in language models, right? The problem with language models is not the language model itself. The problem is language models basically can learn very well all the knowledge, that humans put, and it's not, but everything that today we call language models are so much more than LLMs, right? It's not the old transformer that was 2017. Both in terms of ability, to handle much more context, to handle much more memory, compute efficiency, blah, blah, blah. But also, it's a great first layer of the cake. Of course, post-training and test time compute have been taking it to a new place. Of course, now the modalities are way beyond language, right? A lot of these all the new models are also images and videos and voice. So it's already, and clearly it is so clear that you need also real world, and you need for them RL to actually explore and discover, but it's coming. So I think I think it's a no-brainer that it's a cake, that there is so much, the same way that our human knowledge is built in so many ways that we inspect the world. So yeah, I don't think, and I think everyone knows it, and I think all the labs are investing hard in how to, one, generate new synthetic data, right? So actually a lot of the stuff is now happening on the other side, how to incorporate world models. So I don't, how to become more efficient, how to do continuous training. So, and as you look at these models also, they are becoming, ChatGPT-3 was pretty much an export token, next token predictor, autoregressive, with a little bit of RLHF, that actually focused it to be an assistant kind of like. Fast forward to today, it's already a full agentic system with complex harness and tools and other things. So I think it's already well beyond the LLM. I don't think anyone that is serious in any of the frontier models or other stuff is like, no, we bet like solely on LLMs. I think as a business, and their business, it's always how much do I focus, did I squeeze all the juice that I could squeeze in the near term versus how much do I invest in the longer term? And it seems that there is so much juice to squeeze just by coding. We're seeing a ton of money. So I think this is a little bit, right? These are not pure research that are saying, okay, let me create. But so far, I think, yeah, it's sensible. So yes, 100% no, language is not the end goal. And things will connect. I think also people are saying, okay, let me develop that additional type of intelligence in the places that currently make sense, right? So I don't know, it's like diffusion is like in sciences and definitely images and videos and stuff, and real and world models are in robotics, simulations, whatnot. RL is currently in post-training, but maybe we'll have a comeback. But I'm pretty sure that everyone is thinking how it all connects back.
So you really see the LLM at the very minimum as this incredible interface.
It's the basic layer of the cake, right? You have the internet, you'd be an idiot not to use it.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's the starting layer, and then it can, using the agentic framework, the tools, whatnot, it can pull in any other capabilities it needs to solve the problem.
Yeah, you build the basic understanding, and then on top, then you add more modalities. Then maybe you add additional modalities that come from the world. I think when you look at models like Genie that can actually do real model generation at real time, very easily you can imagine how you create a learning loop here. And then post-training, at least at the moment, is more about not generation new knowledge, but focusing you, although there is now with RL ways that you learn how to solve problems and reason in a very complex way that, again, it's very surprising what you're actually gaining by post-training. And there is a ton of effort. I think there is bigger and bigger understanding on what type of data is missing for what task, and the hill climbing is becoming much more complex, right? I think we moved from amateur climbers walking on this nice path in the wood to I don't know, going up to space. If you look at the rate of progress over the last few years on reasoning traces and very complex tool usage. When we launched, when ChatGPT launched, and this is 3 years ago, right? 2023. It's less than 3 years ago, right? No, 2022. Yeah, so it's almost 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, 3.5. All it could do is text. It couldn't use any tool. We did not have enough tokens. There was latency was crazy. It was so exhaustively costly. Context was 2,000 to 4,000 tokens. Anything you gave to it, the provider was a consumer thing, you were giving your queries away. Hallucination were crazy, and there was no way to do it. right? Well, I like, so if you think where we were and where we are today, right? Like it's, and it will accelerate. Yeah, that's again my belief.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's great to have that level of confidence in the sort of direction that we're going, and also your belief that it's not slowing down. If anything, it's just at the knee. It's about to accelerate. So we focus a lot on the technology, and is it real? Is it strong? Is it powerful? Is it game changing? I think we're absolutely yes. Now let's go back to the human side.
I just want to touch on the absolutely yes, and it.
Oh, sorry, go on.
For whatever reason, we are looking for an absolute yes, is whether the technology is useful, smart, blah, 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 blah. What we should ask ourselves is, when you run from the bear, are you beating the fat guy next to you? Like, this technology will be much, much better than the human alternative long before it's good or great or even okay on some stuff. So that's the right question to ask. And because it is digital and scalable and cheap and available and 24/7, it has a huge advantage, even if intelligently it's not on par or whatnot. And I think that's a key point. Like, that is the baseline. And I think, like, one of the questions is not just how can we measure AI, is how can we measure humans better? And I actually think that the thing I've been waiting forever, the moment we invented the LLM as a judge, I asked, wow, so for the first time, we have a measuring stick that we can apply the same measuring stick to AI and to humans. Like, why aren't we using LLM as the same LLM as a judge to the work humans are producing? So every customer talk, every email you send, every chat you do, every document you do, everything you do also should be logged and traced the same way we're doing with AI. Just run the same, so we know where the baseline is, not just how AI is performing, but compared to the alternative.
How we perform.
And I think it will be such a much more informed discussion, rather than, again, setting this impossible artificial bar of, because I think, like, now there is this glorification of human work, but I think that as humans, we are failing in so many ways, that the entire corporate structure has, like, one layer that about 40% of it is people doing actual work, others are supporting, and then all the layers above are just breaking it into pieces because they're not operating to scale and adding, right? So, and then, like, there are so many problems that we take for granted. Yeah, anyhow, my rant about.
But this is the interesting thing. So if we take your pyramid model, and go back into, like, what's the human role in an AI-genic type, native world, the people doing the work, let's just say 80% of the people actually doing the work could be done by AI. So we can clear that up. Then if you look at the rest of the pyramid, the people who are managing the people who are managing the people who are managing the people, extremely inefficient sort of processes around all of that. So, AI could actually clear up a lot of that work. I say clear up as if it's a good thing. And from an economic sense, it is. From a human perspective, it can also be a good thing if it allows people to then step up and say, well, I don't have to solve these really annoying problems of doing the work. I can now focus on the quality of the output. I don't have to focus on organizing 12 people. I can have 20 AIs that can organize 1,000 people, and they just come up and give me the problems that they can't solve. So it could be seen as an improvement in work and the type of work that we do. But of course, it always takes people and organizations and entire economies a long time to readapt to this working. So it's hard to say the best path from where we are to where we're going to be, but you've had a lot of time to think about ultimately, where do we end up? And in this world where we ultimately end up, what's the role of the human? And I remember, we're in both in that the human side of AI discussions a little while back, and we were like the only two people I remember in the crowd that were like, AI can do amazing art. Everyone's like, well, AI can't really be artistic. And, I think we both agree to say, of course it can. What do you mean?
Yeah.
If you want some randomness of that, that drunken idea that the artist had one night, well, you can throw some randomness in there. If you wanted to say throw away 100 paintings because they're bad, you can create the same kind of approach with AI of creation, destruction, whatever. There's nothing really in this sense that is ultimately human, except the knowledge that a human did it. For example, we don't go to the Olympics to see somebody run faster than a car. We go there to just see what the human is capable of doing. Just like we may choose to buy a piece of art from a human because we're so amazed that a human could do that, not because it's better than what an AI could do. It's somehow different. Now, that's just one example from our past discussions. If we bring this to the entire economy, what is the role of the human?
Yeah. So a lot of things to unpack here. So first, I think we didn't say, but I have a fund now, and the fund runs completely on AI, and we are like just two
Ellipsis. Is that right?
Ellipsis. Yeah, ellipsis. It's the 3 dots in math. People sometimes ask about the name because it's like the future, infinite. The opportunity. Anyhow, and we made a very early decision to build an organization that builds on AI, not humans, and we don't have any full-time employees. We are 2 partners running it with AI. And one insight that we had, or maybe we came from it because my partner worked on the longest time, is when you ask yourself, how can you use AI, never look at what you're currently doing or what humans are doing somewhere else and how you automate that. Because then I think you're you have 2x opportunity if you optimize, and humans are always the bottleneck. You should always take that step back and ask, if AI was doing investment, how would you do it? And remodel it around that. And then I think you have you're breaking the ceiling. So I think if you come and say, don't look at the pyramid organization that reflects human limitation. Try to think if AI needs to do jobs, how would that look like, and where do people fit? So I think that we'll actually start seeing it, kind of already in the next 3 to 5 years, that we will move to what I call, the agentic economy. So basically a marketplace, a completely flat transactional marketplace, where you have buyers, and a buyer can be a human, can be a corporate, can be an agent, but basically you define what you want, and that can be a goal, that can be an evergreen complex task, it could be a single thing, it doesn't matter what it is, right? And then some model breaks that up. Okay, what does that translate actually in terms of deliverables? And of course, they take into consideration your preferences. Are you price sensitive, time sensitive, quality sensitive? Do you need certain compliance, regulatory, privacy, security, geography? Everything goes into it. And then basically it goes out and bids for it. And then you have a bunch of data and skills providers. These are basically, by the way, agents and humans that can come and say, hey, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that the advantage of human here is two ways. One, I think maybe a human is basically high latency, low availability, high trustworthy agent in some places. I'm a special doctor, special lawyer, or I don't know, I'm doing something that people trust me or want you, or an engineer. Or actually, I'm a super good robot, right? So agents can come and say, oh, we cannot do that. Let's hand off to a human because we need to do someplace in the real world, and that could be in a factory or in deliver or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Right? So they work together. So basically a bunch of agents lift their hands and say, I can do it. And the cool thing is I think in the human world, we're very limited because we cannot do 1 billion to billion peer-to-peer communication. You always look at very few providers. And because usually the transactions today are so complex and implementation is so complex, you close deals for many years and the implementation integration takes a long time, so you don't do it a lot. So you need to trust, you need the brand, all of the things. But in the agent world, I believe that you can do it transactional, and you can, instead of trust, use proof. And proof comes in multiple ways. You can come and tell to the agent, hey, here is 10 evil examples that I hold back the answers, prove me that you can solve it. Or I can tell the agent, show me that other buyers that you actually provided the service, and give me their digitally signed recommendation, and you can actually see that other people say and prove, or you can come and say, hey, can some third party vouch for you? I would expect humans and agents would come and say, hey, I vouch for this agent, and for a certain amount, I'm willing to ensure or guarantee whatever the service is, right? So I think, like, again, that goes very, and then you come and say, okay, please do the work. And the cool thing about the please do the work is an agent is a piece of code mostly. So you don't need to move data anywhere. You can bring the piece of code to you, right? So I expect that there will be sandboxes where I have my data. There will be all these MD files that describe exactly the data in my process, right? So an agent can come and learn and understand your environment. There will be security measures to make sure it doesn't do certain stuff and whatever, and you just run it, right? And then there will be escrow services and other things. So I think, like, as I look into the future, I think for most of the stuff, we'll have this like super open, very quick, real-time, transactional bidding of a very large peer-to-peer that just removes a lot of the middlemen and fat and management that you actually don't need. And I think it's very, if you believe in this vision, it means that a lot of the things that we currently use as modes, whether that's your brand, your trust, your first mover advantage, stickiness, and so forth, goes away. Because if it's transactional, I chose you today, I will only, and if you are not doing anything that is defensible, differentiated, you will compete on price. So I think that's a huge change. I think it's inevitable in the longer term.
For me, that's still going to be more AI than a human. I think, except for some very specific elements which are human, where they really need that human, you're talking about doing the work. And in most cases, the work, even to an extent, trust and all these things can be done without the human element. But I guess there are certain things that can't be done. So, like, I mean, theoretically, ownership is still a human thing for the most part. There has to be some human who is owning a company and founding a new company.
There needs to be a legal and insurance setup, which I don't think is a very complex problem of, if there is money to be made, someone will be, we are already living in a world where when you go to do a brain scan, you have no idea who built the machine and who built the parts and who operates the end. You just trust that it works. And when you are going on an airplane, you don't really care, who is the airline company and who is the pilot and which parts of the flight the pilot is flying themselves and what is automated and how are the controls, which are digital, which are, you just don't care how things work. And people.
But we do know that if something goes wrong, and it was avoidable, and it was something stupid or something that should never have happened, that there's always a human who has some level of accountability.
Do we know that? I don't know, right? Like, I don't know, the Colombia blew up and like, it's this and this and that, and many times, or sometimes it's like force majeure, and sometimes, it's a combination of wear and tear, like there are so many. I think it's fine, like, there is, and many times it's not a human entity, like, many times companies are entities that we accepted, or countries and states. There are so many organizations that are not human that we accept that they are liable, and we found a way to do it. So again, I'm not trivializing, but I'm saying, I think that sometimes we're saying, oh, it's the first time that there is a machine out there that does something, and that machine is very complex, and there isn't necessarily a single human owning it to prove it. I don't know, there is an operation and some failure, and so, like, even then, is it negligence or not? And is it the machine that did it? Is it like, so I think I think that's solvable. I don't think that will be the thing that will block progress. I think the question on what will people do is a good question. I think that, like, we always think that however the current world works in the here and now, like where I live in the current decade, that's the optimal state, and any deviation from it is like, super, super horrible. Like, I look like, how work was done when I was young. Like even like, there was no, like, first there was a clear separation between, work and not work. You were not online. There was no way to connect with you, right? Like, and there was no way to work remotely. There was no way to talk with people that are outside your office. There was no way to meet someone unless you are physical. The pace of things, like, and the available information was very, very different. Then, like, before working in office and working remotely, that also changed. When I compare it to many societies around the globe, right, like, go into all the southern hemisphere, they would look that we are like animals in cages. We go to offices all day. They'll be shocked. How can you do that? Like, my point is that already today, the things that we take is that's normal. That's how people spend their time. People would say it's crazy. And also, if you go a little bit in time, 150 years ago, before mechanization and automation, people work their entire life since you are a child until you die. And if I would have told them that you should only start working until 20, and until then you study and your parents pay for it, and you work only until you're 65 and then society pays for it, they would think I'm crazy. So I think there is a ton of headroom actually, first, to work less. Like, why are we studying until 20? I think, like, you should study until you are 40. I'm always shocked how uneducated the population is. Like, how many people understand how their body works and what's good and bad for their body? How many people understand how economy works? How many people understand how the world works in terms of physics and all of that, or biology or chemistry? Right? In my opinion, super basic knowledge. Like, maybe if we take double the time to do PhDs in critical areas, the world is a bit of better place to understand politics, economics, physics, and so forth. But also, I think that if you are doing work that a machine can do, you shouldn't do it. You are stealing work from the machine. I think the biggest today is education. I think, like, actually a lot of the problems, in my opinion, start from education. And my biggest problem with education is the first thing that you teach kids, really the first thing in kindergarten, because the size of the kindergarten is 30 kids and there is like 2 teachers, is that everyone now follows the rules, because otherwise we cannot teach you. So you sit like that, you eat together, you go play to, like, no one, like, you're basically killing free will, curiosity, free spirit, everything. You are like teaching, you're creating these little soldiers of society, because that's the prerequisite for education, not because that's really the prerequisite, but it's the prerequisite for the education system, how we built it. And I'm saying, if we took all the people that we're putting in offices and put them in the education system and use AI to make education that is personalized and engaging and so forth, wouldn't, like, the world be a better place? Like, there is so many places that we actually need people to connect to people, so many lonely people, so many people that society neglected. Can we really understand these problems and put people there rather than put someone like moving stuff in an office between 2 Excel sheets? So I think the headroom, like, I don't buy it that, if we take people from doing BS work in offices, society is doomed. And we already, anyone that works in a large corporate knows that 60 or 70% of the people are delivering zero value. It's fact. And I always feel it's like children, children play as if they're working in a store, or as if, I don't know, like, they're a doctor and whatnot. And I'm saying, okay, worst case, if we need to create this fake building that you come every day and pretend that you're actually doing work that society doesn't really need, which is what we're doing now, we can still do it if that makes people happy. I'm going, I have a briefcase, I'm going and I'm moving stuff from here to there, I'm doing busy work. We can do that if that's like the new matrix. Yeah, so big round.
I mean, I love what you're saying here, because you're a little bit more bullish than most people that I've spoken to on AI will actually do a lot more than we ever think today, and B, humans just need to find something better to do than work. I'd like to take the example, you said that you've started gardening, and if I look outside, I see that you have your lawnmower. It's obviously taken at least an hour or 2 a week of work away in the summer, mowing your lawn, and it's just going back and forth doing this for you. It's a little bit sort of, a very simple kind of automation AI example of something that's taking away work that people sometimes enjoyed, often didn't enjoy, was a livelihood for some people. What are you going to do with the spare time, or what should we all do with the spare time that AI is now freeing up in order to do things that add more value? And what is the definition of value in this case?
Yeah. So again, I'm not going to define definition of value for that, but I can tell you the stuff that I find, First, I think that stress because of work is one of the biggest epidemics, and it has huge negative effect. Two, how much time are you actually spending with friends and family that you would like? How much traveling did you actually do compared to what you want? How many hobbies did you actually do and put yourself into it? Like, how many languages do you speak? How many, I don't know, musical instruments, sports? How much, physical activities, actually being in shape? How much learning and self-development have you actually do? Like, I think there is, you can live such a richer, more fulfilling, slower paced life. So I think that's already a huge time, and a lot of it is actually also learning skills that are useful for you, useful for your close circle, useful for society as a whole. And then I'm saying also there is a lot of these actually NGOs that have identified a lot of real problems in the world and are completely under-resourced. What if we really looked at the top 1,000 NGOs in the foreseen future, especially ones that either need the human touch, right? Like, whether that, from kids to other unprivileged societies that actually need that human touch, or in the short to mid-term kind of physical stuff, like things that robotics are. Yeah. Can we put humans on the places that actually, delivers value? So I think even just between these two, like, make sure that people are less stressful, they spend more time with other people, they actually invest more in their own self-development, and then contribute to society and in places that actually at the moment machines can do. I think that's already like a huge demand and huge value.
So let me take that as the goal, as a direction we're going to go. It's hard to say if it's happening in 5 years or 50 years, but let's have that as the goal. What do you think leaders of an organization should be telling their HR department, should be telling their employees at this moment today? How should people get ready today for this next world?
So first of all, my biggest rant is with organizations, but of a slightly different one. And this is like the administrations, right? So because I was invited to give a talk, is the democracy ready for AI? And I said no, but not because of all the reasons one think, because I think that a lot of the problems and the risks that we're seeing in democracy, has nothing to do with fake news and stuff like that. The people manage to do horrible stuff and horrible religious and other theories that led to genocides long before we had electricity. We don't need AI to help us with that. But if I look at what are the reasons that are destabilizing nations and societies and people, a lot of it has to do with inequalities. And a lot of these inequalities are actually, one, rooted in education. People with access to education usually, have much more capabilities. And the other one is like really basic services that are not available to anyone the same. And a second one is like, really education being like completely broken. And the third one is just like poor administration. And I think that AI can really change that. So my point is, if all the governments now, instead of worrying on regular, put some regulation, would really come and say, how are we using AI to change the life of the societies that we're responsible for? How do we make sure that intelligence now supplied as a utility to everyone? So everyone that has a phone actually gets the best education, the best health consultation, the best legal consultation, the best training, the best, all the things that today only people with a lot of money and limited and scarce access suddenly available to everyone. The second question is, how do we improve our own education and health system using the frontier, the best AI? Because we all know these systems are like so bad. Like, how do we push the limits and find the best profits? So when you go, actually, they're great. And third, how do we run our administration using AI? Imagine that suddenly every government or every local meeting is being listened and dictated, and AI is monitoring and making sure that they're doing what they're promising, that they're optimized, that all the problems that people report are actually recorded. And you know, even with today's technology, you can suddenly think of a society that actually operates AI. So my first round before I go to businesses, I go to public administration and tell them, stop worrying about AI and start worrying on how you use it to make the life of everyone better. I always say, sure, downsides are important, but upsides usually give you a much more high return. I don't see any investment in the upside in the public service and management, nothing serious. Going now to your question is, look, I think that the reality of disruptions and transformations is that usually all the companies either go away or are extremely marginalized. Like even if you look today at the stock exchange, I know 30 to 40% of the total S&P value is like what, 7 companies that other than Microsoft maybe, and Apple did not exist before the year 2000 as an incorporated company. And even them, you know, what they're, you know, most of their money is not from what they did before. So I think you should expect that when you go 10 years from now, especially at this rate, the companies that will be the majority will not be many of the SaaS and services companies that you're talking about. And I think that's a realization. And yes, I also think that the scenario by which there is a handful of very large energy and compute companies that's most of the business and most of us are living on their taxes, I think that could be fine. Still, I think that the world is moving from a desert world to a water world. You know, it's like, I don't know, like from Dune or Mad Max into what was World with Kevin Costner. Two very different worlds, right? And when you know that this is going to happen, you shouldn't worry about how do I make money tactically from me drinking the water. You should better learn to swim. It's a different world. Like you should, you know, you have a strategic risk on existential. Would you survive that transformation? And for companies, even if you take a good company, the AI world is so different because you need new talent, you need new systems, you need to fix your data, and you need to be able to move at a speed that is so much faster. It's like it's like, and if you look in the past, you know, moving from the waterfall model to kind of agile or other real time, you know, that took years. You know, some companies are still stuck in the waterfall model of the 90s because it's so hard to take a system. So I would tell them, and in a good company, I think that actually doing this is like 2 to 3 years at least. So I would tell them, invest in developing that muscle. Invest in really learning that new world. Don't worry about tactical returns, ROI, prioritization. Like whatever money you're currently pouring into it is going to be tactical compared to the potential loss that is coming if the world changes and you're not ready. And yes, start thinking about, you know, allow your workforce to experiment. Find the ones that actually allow for new stars to rise. Find the new leaders. Learn about this new infrastructure that is going to evolve. Start to think what are the risks of the future, like getting the talent is going to be super hard, and business models that are completely changing, right? You had license to work and all of that, that's super disruptive, and try to think of the assets. And I think the only assets is very unique expertise that cannot be simulated or duplicated by a model, and very unique data. And if you don't have this, like also plan for, okay, an exit, I don't know. So that's what I would say. I would take a strategic look and don't worry on time and resources spent on that. Yeah, right. Okay, within reason, right? I'm not saying 99 stop everything, right? Like, but yeah, I think like you can do a significant double-digit investment into that, and you need to understand that in such a shift, because you know, as people, we don't like taking painful decisions. We're always saying, oh, all the options are painful. Let me find the one that isn't painful. And surprisingly enough, we always prefer a huge disaster in the future over suffering a little bit now. And I'm saying, no, I don't think there is an easy solution for the ones existing today. Shifting from a company that operates today on high margin into the world of AI in low margin, that's a painful transformation. There is no easy way of doing it. You will need to choose between non-easy ways. And I think that's something we don't like doing. And I would say, like, guys, no easy solution is going to emerge. Start doing the painful thing, but it's your only way to move forward. And again, invest in data, expertise, and this infrastructure.
I think that is a beautiful close to this session. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been eye-opening and exciting to think about this, and a bit scary to think about this future world. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.